Hey, Dr. Cindy here. I deleted the other video because I finally got the message that there was no audio. This video is going to be about racialized self-loathing, and it's designed for the destruction of unity. On my last video, I asked the question, hey Fanny, I asked the question, what is unity? I'm glad Fanny's here. She's a colleague, psychologist, and a journalist, and she calls black people multidimensional. And that is true. We are multidimensional. But I also want to talk about how racialized self loathing has a specific design, and it's meant for the destruction of unity. But you got to understand there are a lot of different definitions of unity depending on who it is that's defining it, especially in the black community. Some people think unity is everybody coming together as one. Some people think unity is working together as one. It's always got to be this everybody, all people kind of thing. But I talked in my last video that, and you know what, I've read some other things. I want to just digress just for a moment because I've read some other things and I've listened to other people talk about how we are so individualized. The fact is we are not. That's the problem. So I don't agree with some of the people, and one of the people was Cornel West. But I'm not saying that because of the thing that happened that prompted this video. But he was one of the people that said that we are individualized. We need to embrace some of that individuality sometimes because it takes an individual to make a movement that draws other people to you. We'll talk about that too. But anyway, for anybody who does not know me, my name is Cynthia Elise Smith. I'm a writer, I'm an author, a novelist. I'm also an anti-racism essayist and educator. If you want to share, please do. Anybody you think might be interested. Let me see if I can find that. Yeah, here it is. What prompted this today was something that I read overnight. And mind you, I have not had a drop of sleep. That's why I'm giving eye today, because I haven't had a moment's sleep. So I had to put that stuff up under my eyes to make them a little brighter. I had to get a little extra eyeshadow up in there, to kind of make it look like I haven't have had a drop of sleep. Because trust me, I have been up all night. But being retired, I don't have to go to work. So I'm good to go. I can go to sleep after this. But anyway, and if you know me, you know that there are going to be moments where I digress and go off into something else like I just did. But anyway, getting back to what I'm talking about, I got this thing came up on my feed. And when stuff like this comes up on my feed, I am compelled, and I mean compelled, to respond. I can't. It's got something to do with how I feel about words. My master's is in writing studies. If somebody is putting something down and it doesn't make sense, I'm going to say it doesn't make sense. If somebody is writing something that is absolutely idiotic, I'm going to say it. Mind you, I'm not talking about you personally. I'm talking about what was written. Okay, so there's a difference. And here's the thing. This person wrote with the Facebook black background and white letters. So this was serious. You ready? Some of you seen it. We were better off as slaves. Okay. We were better off as slaves. And guess what the caveat was? At least we knew we needed each other. So that's supposed to be the rationale. Okay, we were better off as slaves. Why? Because at least then, as opposed to now, we knew we needed each other. So I wrote him a comment and I said, that has to be the most idiotic thing I have ever read by a non-white person. Because those are the kinds of things I expect and read from white people, not somebody black. Okay, I read some pretty crazy things, but this, we were better off as slaves? Really? Okay. So his comment back to me was, this was not my comment. This comment came from Cornel West. And then he went on to explain stuff. So I started crafting a rebuttal. And this is what I wrote him. Well, first, this is what I wanted to write. I said, this is why I find myself reluctantly wanting to unfriend a black person who doesn't seem to want to think for himself. Okay? I told him the statement on the post that accompanied this thing was the most ridiculous I had ever read from a non-white person. As a retort for this most ridiculous statement, I was told it came from Dr. Cornel West. So I'm like, while I respect the scholarship of Dr. West, if he did say this, and I doubted very seriously if this would have come out of his lips. First, I questioned the context. And without context, it doesn't add any sense, reality, or value to the statement. I explained that the entire notion, and this is what I want you guys to hear, because I don't know how far this is going to get shared. Generally, my posts where I write and I get a little wordy, only maybe tops, maybe 30 or 40 people see it. The videos tend to be seen more. Maybe it's my fata malines. However, I want you to think about what's being said right now, because this is going to make your brain blow up. Hopefully. Because that means it's opening wide. Okay? I explained that the entire notion of a loss or a lack of unity, which of course is what he was saying, at least we knew we needed each other, that presupposes that, somehow that has been lost. Okay, so I say, the fact is, I said, this entire notion of a loss or a lack of unity is a fallacy. Listen to me. Some of you are going to say, oh, she crazy. She don't know what she talking about. But I'm here to tell you, the concept of a loss or lack of unity is a fallacy. And I'm going to tell you why. First of all, it's promulgated by white supremacy, that ideology. All right? First and foremost, people, you have to understand that it is in everything. Stop deluding yourself and thinking that it is not. And it just kind of lives over here sometimes. And maybe it's a little bit in there sometimes. And it's not the deepest thing. That there is something else deeper. No, it starts right there. And it starts all the way up in terms of faith and who God is. And who God was made in the image of. All the way down. Think trickle down. Okay? So, it's a fallacy promulgated by white supremacy and supported and maintained by black people who believe the conditioning, that black people lost something as huge. Now, I want you to get a feel for this. That black people lost something as huge as the intangible concept of unity. First of all, unity is a concept. It is intangible. You can't feel it. You can't touch it. All right? It's a concept, a construct. The fact is, we never, air quotes, lost our collective blackness as a state of being. Understand what blackness as a state of being means. It means the essence of who we are. We have embraced, at the very least, since the civil rights movement, the concept of blackness as a state of being and not just a color. I mean, of course, we had to. Look at my skin, my grandson's skin. Okay? We come in all colors. So we already know that piece was a fallacy and only meant to be used to identify us. Okay? A tool, if you will. But we embrace the concept of blackness as a state of being. Yes, we're black, and what? We're proud. Okay? And this was done in the midst of all of the. This was done as a remedy for all of the negativity surrounding dark and black that had nothing to do with skin. You understand what I'm saying when I say that? Darkness. Black magic. Black sheep. I could go on, but I'll digress if I do that. Let me get back to this. Anyway, the fact is we never lost our collective blackness as a state of being. Basically, because we all, now see, here it is. We all identify with the multidimensional, thank you, Fanny, identity of blackness as a state of being. Because we do, we are in fact bound together for all intents and purposes and within the concept of unity. So if you understand that unity is an intangible concept, and you also understand that blackness as a state of being is an intangible concept that we have applied to ourselves, all of us, if you are black and you identify as black, you in the club. You got a black card. What does that say? I explained to this person, or wanted to, that I wrote 2 essays on the subject back in 2017, and that's in my other video. Right now, that's on www.c-alease-writer.com. www.c-alease-writer.com. I wrote that the truth is, this is what I told them. I wrote that the truth is that black people are inextricably tied for good and for bad. And anybody who is in earshot of what I'm saying knows that's the truth. Unbleached, it is the truth. I wrote that when black people believe at some point, whether in the distant or recent past, there was an intangible black unity in its entirety, which was somehow lost, the impetus for anything in the future would then have to rest on waiting for this unrealistic, intangible unity to return. You understand what I'm saying when I say that? There are some black people who believe that at some point, whether it is in the distant past, generations past, like this dude back during slavery, we were, what was that he said? We at least knew we needed each other. That's distant past. And then you have some black people who deal with it in terms of yesterday. We as a people, we need to. When are we going to? We have to. So, they believe that at some point, whether distant or recent past, that there was an intangible black unity in its entirety, the whole of blackness as a state of being, okay, was somehow lost. And therefore, the impetus for anything in the future that we might attempt to create, to do, to succeed in, anything, would have to rest on this waiting, waiting for this unrealistic, intangible unity to return. Are you getting this? That the people who are sitting up here waiting, talking about we as a people need to, when are we going to, we gonna have to start, why ain't we? Are waiting for something that was designed by white supremacy. It becomes self-defeating and removes any motivation for individual action or move. Got me losing my voice. Listen, let me start this over. It becomes self-defeating. I get very emotional over this mess. And removes any motivation for individual action or movement. Do you understand? Because if you're sitting up here waiting for everybody, you ain't gonna move. Because why? You waiting for everybody. That's why whenever I see stuff like that come up on my feed, I say, well, what are you doing? What you waiting for? Like there was one dude that got on my feed talking about moving to Africa. I said, did you get your ticket? Are you ready to roll? What are you waiting for? Well, we waiting for black people to come together so we can put our money together and pool our resources. I explained, and I want you to understand this, because the people that are going to tell you that we are too individual, that first of all, I am here to tell you that we do not exercise that. We are too busy waiting for we as a people. I want you to hear this, because I explained how individual action, it's individual action. That's what draws people together into unified groups. Individual action draws people into unified groups. The few people I have on this video right now, listening to the sound of my voice and watching me talk, have created a unified group. Unified groups make effort and movements. Individuals move, groups move. Okay? Create movements. Now, I recalled how the civil rights movement was never one huge unified event. One gigantic, magnificent movement where all black people came together and made change happen. That's the bleach narrative to make black people believe it could never happen again. Because I can't even tell you how many people go back to that moment 50 some odd years ago and claim that that was the absolute only time that we came together as a people and made things change. The fact is, then as now, it was a whole lot of movements. A whole lot of movements by individuals and groups, just like what is happening today. In fact, today, for me, since I lived through the period of the 60s, of course, I came of age between the 60s and the 70s. I know this for a fact. I don't have to consult a history book for this one. It was a whole lot of stuff going on. But what they're going to show you on television is the arms and arms on that one special occasion when they marched on Washington, and oh, there were just so many black faces, and it was just the grandest thing. And Martin Luther King said, I have a dream. That's what they're going to tell you. That's what they're going to show you. And they're just going to keep showing you that moment, that one thing, and say, this was it. And have everybody waiting for that moment to arrive again. Well, that ship has sailed. Because it was a fallacy in the first place. There were a whole lot of individual movements, so many different things going on at that time. Black people here's the thing, and I'm going to read this again. It was a whole lot of movements by individuals and groups like today. And that sometimes, and this is what you need to understand, sometimes the directions to the destination are different, and people are coming from different places to get there. You see what I'm saying? You don't need to wait for everybody to congregate in one place to make it happen. I might be over here. He may be over there. She may be back there. We got our directions. We know how to get there. We know what we want. And what is that? Equality, equity, opportunity, and justice. And you can pepper some reparations in there for work performed. It is the individual actions of individual people who draw people to them, and then they come together to form groups and make movements. This is the key to unity. If that's the way you perceive unity, you got to get out there and form your group. And then that group forms a group. And then you coalesce around one another. But it only takes one person to get that ball rolling. So you don't really need to keep waiting for everybody to just join that one little spot, at one little place in there, and then say, okay, now that the entirety of the black race is together, we can do something. So that was going to be my response to this dude. However, he blocked me before I could put this in. I thought he just blocked my ability to respond when it said failed to post. You know, the red exclamation point, or the red circle with the white exclamation point in it. And then I said, "Oh," and because I had originally said, "Well, let me unfriend him because I just can't. I really can't. Times are getting tough. I just can't. I can't." But when I went to unfriend, I saw that he had already blocked me. Well, whatever. So I said, "It appears that when it comes to unity, there are still some black people much more comfortable living inside their self-loathing rather than understanding the root of it and deciding to think seriously about the purpose of the negative thinking in the first place. So when he doesn't want the unbelieved truth and blocks me, and frankly, this goes for anybody, I move on. I said goodbye to him, and I said, your short visit to my page must have been just too much, since I admit I am not for the faint of heart. And I said this, I am not for the faint of heart, because in the beginning of my introduction, I say, I am not here to soothe and console. I'm here to give you unbleached history, unbleached commentary. And when it resonates, that's truth, that's even better. Okay? So anyway, what I did was I found a couple of things. I found a couple of articles. One is from Psych Alive, a website called psychalive.org, if you want to refer to it. And it's an article on self-loathing. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm just going to read those salient points. Self-loathing is that underlying feeling. This is in a general sense. Self-loathing is that underlying feeling that we are just not good. Not good enough. Not good at this. Not good at that. Not good at or for much of anything. It can be subtle. We may habitually compare ourselves to others. For instance, constantly finding fault with ourselves and putting ourselves down with no real awareness that there is anything amiss. Or we may listen intently to our critical inner voice while it scolds and berates us, telling us how embarrassing, stupid, or insensitive we are, refusing to challenge it, even while we suffer from it. Now, it goes into detail about the causes of self-loathing, but I'm not going to go into all of that part of it, because that is a general psychological definition. So I went to racialequalitytools.org, and it is an article by Donna K. Bivens. I think she's a scholar. I didn't check that, but I do believe she's a scholar because it's in a scholarly format. And she talks about internalized racism, which is self-loathing. She says we internalize it. As people of color, we are victimized by racism, we internalize it. That is, we develop ideas, beliefs, actions, and behaviors that support or collude with racism. Now that fits for many black people. It certainly fits for the individual who put that idea up and blamed it on Dr. Cornel West. And I will assure you that I did some exhaustive research today and did not find it in any quote on the internet. Famous people will generally have sites with just their quotes. And trust me, if he had said this, this would have been a quote in one of those quotes. This internalized racism has its own systemic reality and its own negative consequences in the lives and communities of people of color. Are you hearing this? Because it fits. More than just a consequence of racism, then, internalized racism is a systemic oppression in reaction to racism that has a life of its own. In other words, just as there is a system in place that reinforces the power and expands the privilege of white people, there is a system in place that actively discourages and undermines the power of people and communities of color and mars us in our own oppression. Individuals, institutions, and communities of color are often unconsciously and habitually rewarded. You got to hear this. Individuals, institutions, and communities of color are often unconsciously and habitually rewarded for supporting white privilege and power. Don't we see it every day? And punished and excluded when we do not. This system of oppression often coerces us to let go of or compromise our own better judgment, thus diminishing everyone as the diversity of human experience and wisdom is excluded. Equally harmfully, the system can trap people and communities of color in an oppositional stance that can undermine creativity as situations are seen through a limited victim-perpetrator lens that cuts us off from the breadth of possibility. What did I say? What did I say? We become self-defeating because we sit here and we wait and wait and wait and wait for a intangible concept to emerge, as though we don't have minds of our own. Because internalized racism is a systemic oppression, it must be distinguished from human wounds like self-hatred or low self-esteem. I'm going to repeat that because that's why I didn't get really down and deep into the psychological part of self-loathing, because this is different, because this is systemic. There is a design. This is why I put in the title, it is a design for the destruction of unity. It turns it into yet another paradox. Because if, as I say, this intangible thing called unity or the lack of unity is a fallacy, then how is there destruction, say? I'm not saying that unity does not exist, because I explained that unity is the collectivity of blackness as a state of being. If you identify as black, you are part of the collective, unified body, black. Now, anything else you want to attach to it to try to give it some sort of significance in the negative, such that we don't have it, or it ain't come yet, or it was back then and we waiting for it to come back, that's on you. Because there are those that no matter what I say, it's not going to change their minds because they have internalized it so deeply. The racism that comes from the system of racism has been internalized so deeply. So because internalized racism is a systemic oppression, it must be distinguished from human wounds like self-hatred or low self-esteem, to which all people are vulnerable. It is important to understand it as systemic because this makes it clear that it is not a problem simply of individuals. It is structural. See, once you understand also that it's a structure, well, let me read this and then we can discuss it. It is structural. Thus, even people of color who have high self-esteem, like moi, and you, and you, and you, and you. I think there are like 6 people on here with me. Thank you. Please feel free to share if anybody might be interested in your group of people, friends, that may not be mutuals of mine. Even people of color who have high self-esteem must wrestle with the internalized racism that infects us, our loved ones, our institutions, and our communities. Internalized racism must then be understood as a system to be grappled with by people and communities of color in the same way that even the most committed anti-racist white people must continue to grapple personally and in community with their own and other white people's privilege until our existing racist system is abolished and replaced. Okay. Now, there was something that I also wanted to read to you that I put up because in my research for that particular quote from Cornel West, which did not exist, I found one. And it says, he says, this is from his book, Race Matters. My aim is not to provide excuses for black behavior or to absolve blacks of any personal responsibility. But when the new black conservatives accent black behavior and responsibility in such a way that the cultural realities of black people are ignored, and see, we could draw upon what I just read, the systemic realities. They are playing with a deceptive and dangerous intellectual game with the lives and fortunes of disadvantaged people. We indeed must criticize and condemn immoral acts of black people, but we must do so cognizant, and this speaks directly to this insane desire that some of our black brothers and sisters have for immediately condemning people without understanding why. We must do so cognizant of the circumstances into which people are born and under which they live. By overlooking these circumstances, the new black conservatives fall into the trap. And I would say not just new black conservatives, but people who are also stuck in internalized racism. By overlooking these circumstances, the new black conservatives fall into the trap of blaming black poor people for their predicament. It is important to steer a course between Scylla, I think it's pronounced Scylla, of environmental determinism and the Carbitis of blaming the victim's perspective. Okay, so that's Dr. West being cute, okay? It's spelled Scylla, and the other one is spelled Charybdis. Those are two Greek mythological dragons of the deep. Okay, so he's saying you're between this dragon and this dragon. You're between a rock and a hard place. That's all he had to say in the first place, but he wanted to be literary. It was a book after all. But that's what he meant. You find yourself between a rock and a hard place. So, people who are still here, I haven't had an opportunity to see who's here. There are 5 people here now. I was going to, six. Okay, there's 6 people here now. I'm going to scroll that part down and then start saying hi to people. And you can invite people on because we could talk about it. Hi, I hope Fanny's still watching. Hi, Khalil and Walter. Hey, hey, oh, Gregory. That's my baby. That's my baby. That's my little Greg. Greg, you old. I saw some pictures. You got a great beard and everything. My baby that grew up. You're going to make me cry, Greg. I remember I used to grab you up and snatch you up all the time and take you places with me when you were a baby. But, yep. Love you, Gregory. Hi, Auntie. Oh. Hi, Finn. I think that's the way you pronounce your name. I think the J is silent. I said that before. I'm not sure. But how are you? Hey, Will. I hope you're still watching. How you doing? Jack French, Kenneth Porter, Michael Washington, Mona Valerie, hi, Willie Duche, hi there, PC, hey, Freddie Barkley. I did engage with the woman that you at Shantae. I messaged her, she messaged me, and I sent her my website and things like that for her to look at. Okay. Diane, my buddy. Oh, you missed 11. That's okay. If you missed 11 minutes, that's fine, because once I finish, I upload it and then I put it in my little program on my PC and put my little title in there, and then I put my little ending in there, and then I put it on YouTube, and then I put it on my formal page, the like page and everything. So it ends up in a bunch of places, so you'll see it. Oh, thank you, PC. Thank you. Thank you. Oh. Yeah. No, we hold the black cards, Diane. You hold the white card. Prince Bernard, hi. Hi, Prince Bernard. Dougherty Fred. Phoenix Woods, hi there. That moment you lit my... Okay, Diane says, that moment you lit my bulb on that I Have a Dream several weeks ago. Oh, yeah. That was heavy, wasn't it? That was heavy. I think I have... The video to that is on my YouTube channel. Dr. Cynthia Ali Smith, the doctor, is in on YouTube. And also, I believe it's on the videos of my like page. It's called The Content of... What is it called? I think The Content of His Character. The Content of the Character, something like that. Hold on 1 second. Let me get that title for you. It's called... I can find it real quick. Hold on bear with me one less second here. Let me find it. Go to my channel. It is called The Content of Their Character, a supposition as to mockery and white supremacy. Let me see if I can get it. Yep, that's what it is. Uh-oh, I don't want it to play. Okay. Yep. Yeah, that one's pretty heavy. I have that in written form too. So if anybody wants to look at that, that's deep, because that one talked about all of the grand schemes. What if one of the reasons why during the paradigm shift of the post-civil rights movement and into the post-racial colorblind period, white supremacists concocted a way that while color would still be a tool used in background, they would use content of character. So, what did they do? Mass incarceration, drugs, war on drugs, war on crime. Round them up. Their character is flawed. And if you stop and you think about it, most of what happens now is all about the content of your character, because most people say, well, I don't care if they black or white. Yeah, they do. However, they're not going to concentrate on that because the system is still working structurally and institutionally already in their favor. But they can make you think it's all about your saggy pants. It's all about the way you talk. It's all about your dreadlocks. Somehow your character is tied to these things. Lazy, dirty, unkept, all those things. Content of character things. So yeah, if you get a chance, get over on my website. I have the videos there as well, and the written essay. Hi, Ebony Frazier, Melvin Stewart. There are only 4 people on here now. Warren Jackson. I don't know how many other people are here. Rachel Jabara. I mean, I like that people actually got on. It seems like there were more people. Kenneth Dawkins, Ruthie Gray, Beverly Gilson, Art Bell. Hi, Art Bell. Tonya, one of my inspirations. My girl inspires me all the time. She'll pop something up on my feed and I'll be, wait a minute, I need to write an essay about this. And whenever I'm inspired, I always make it a point to acknowledge the person who was my inspiration. So, get on my page, put something up. If you think that whatever you're putting up there is going to inspire me to do something, to write an essay, I will definitely acknowledge you as my inspiration, because that's what helps me write, is inspiration. Oh, don't worry about it, Tonya. Don't worry about being late, because I'm going to upload it, so you're going to be able to see it. Systemic racism, P.C. Sanderson says, systemic racism has internalized us so bad that it's incorporated into our everyday life. Absolutely. And it's just the whole thing. You have to understand it's in everything. If ever you get an opportunity, while I don't agree with absolutely everything that is that Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. says, there are some fundamental truths that he has expressed. And one of them is the fact that racism, the system of racism, lives in every aspect of human activity. And he lists them. I always forget 1 or 2. But the ones that I know of: economics and finance, religion, law and criminal justice, entertainment, labor, and a whole lot of, I think there are like 8 of them, something like that. If you ever have an opportunity, Google his name, you'll find his website. He always prefers that you get his books from his website and not from Amazon, because he does not get paid for that. These are other people who are selling his books. You know, when people return books or people sell books to Amazon or somehow get the book and then sell it, he doesn't get a royalty or anything for it. So if you get on Nearly Fuller's website, get his book. The next time I get on, I have it. I have both of them. I'll show it to you so you can get an idea what it looks like. But it is very, very interesting. And one of the things that he says, you know, like, I have my mantra, I'm not trying to change your mind, but I made it my business to open it. His is anything, if you don't know about the system of racism, and I'm paraphrasing, and what it does, everything about it will confuse you. Basically, if you don't understand the system of racism, if you can't navigate this system, if you are blinded to the system, and if you don't even acknowledge it really exists, everything that happens to you is going to confuse the absolute hell out you. You're going to be like, wait a minute, what? Wait, what? How'd that happen? How did that manage to happen? This is why a lot of white people are so surprised, because they haven't really paid attention, and they haven't considered that racism existed, and they didn't consider the systemic nature of it and the fact that it's in every aspect of human activity. So when things begin to happen, and because of the beauty of social media so far, because there are things afoot that are trying to stifle this kind of thing, but because of social media now, they get to see this death, that death, cop and killed this one, cop and killed that one. Oh my God, what the hell is going on? Well, that's the part of criminal justice and law that racism lives in and that we suffer from. And then they find out. Hey, Christine! How you doing, darling? Oh, thank you, Beverly. Thank you so much. Thank you for that. Thank you for that kindness. She says, bright blessings continue to be awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much. And Fanny just shared link to your video on one of my posts. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. There's a see more on it, Fanny, and when I'm on my computer, I can't see the rest of it, but as soon as I get off and I upload it, then I will definitely comment and thank you again. You're another one of my inspirations. And Tonya says, I'm wondering where the notion of post-racial America came from. I never heard it. Really? You never heard? I can't see the part after the see more. But here's the thing. I'm not sure where it was coined either. But it is, I'm not sure where Generation X came from. I'm not sure where Generation Y came from. The point is that there are periods of time within generations and during generations where historians group things together and put it into an era, just a period of time. And post-racial, that would be interesting. I think I might go ahead and try to find out where it came from. That might be difficult. But the fact is, post-racial means this was this period of time during the advent of the civil rights movement when systemic racism was able to hide in background. I think we talked about that. I think I've talked about that enough times. It hid in background, and at the same time, there was the I me era or movement, where white people were kind of sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Given not given, but they started expressing themselves individually. It was at the same time that we were trying to express ourselves as a collective and find our blackness, find our love for ourselves as black people. That was during the time, oh, I'm black and I'm proud. At the same time, white people were learning how to be individual, because prior to that post-racial period, whiteness as a state of being existed. Okay. And was expressed. Anyway, so, post-racial colorblind, that period of time, that era coincided with each other. The Me movement, colorblind, and post-racial. Racism was supposedly ended because what they did was they took segregation and called that racism. So when segregation ended, they said racism's gone. And then they opened up their caste system and allowed some black people in. Okay. They made an attempt at reparations with affirmative action and things like that. And of course, I always talk about how white disappeared. That's how it got colorblind. That was color blindness. Whiteness disappeared. Trust me, because that's why it's such a big issue today. Now that it's back. Okay, that's why when you say white to white people, they get. And I'm not saying everybody. I'm just saying this is why. She said white because it wasn't supposed to be there anymore. It was replaced with normal, neutral, natural, and nude. Okay. Hi, Shonda Hill. Oh, you still here? Good. Thank you. Look at Tanya. Look at Tanya. Oh, my inspiration. You my inspiration. Oh, but see, that's that, Diane. The only reason, the reason why you were beyond confusion is just because you hadn't considered it. You're considering it now. And I mean, sometimes kicking and screaming, but you are listening, and that's important. Oh, thank you, Tanya. Thanks for the insight. I will follow you more. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, listen, I'm retired. I was actually, you know what, I was conversing with someone who had just done a live video about black men and women. I the next time I get on here, I'm gonna find his name, because he's a pretty dynamic dude, pretty dynamic man, young man, and he's a scholar and a psychologist, and let me see. Bear with me. I got to say who he is, because he is a really. See if I can find. I probably won't be able to find it, because he had a video. It was early this morning. He had a video. I'll try to find it and find his name. But he mentioned Fred Hampton. Ah, that's what it was. Okay, I'm going to find it now. Hold on one second. He mentioned Fred Hampton. With any good fortune, I will find it. I won't find it. I know I won't. It's way, way. Darn it. Bear with me. Bear with me. Okay, I promise. I will find out who this young man is. Hey, Sturge. How you doing? I will find out who he is. But anyway, he was talking about Fred Hampton. And I explained to him that I was 15 years old when Fred Hampton died. But it was Fred Hampton who was my mentor in my head. I followed him. Okay, for those of you who don't know who Fred Hampton is, find out. Fred Hampton was one of the leaders of the Black Panthers. And when I tell you that this man was one of the most dynamic speakers and individuals who was able to draw people together. And he died tragically at the hands of the FBI. He was set up. And of course, there were people who said that he wasn't set up. You know, he was one of the people who was a victim. He was one of the victims of COINTELPRO. And then I talked to him about another black man of that period that was someone who formed who I am and why I do what I do today. So you have to understand, I've been like this since I was about 11 years old. I had my first experience with racism at about, I say 7, between 6 and 8 years old, when this little kid called me a nigger. And I tried to remove my bicycle, but that okay, we ain't even gonna go there. The thing is, I started reading, and at about 18, maybe 19. I know the gentleman I'm talking about is George Jackson. He was one of the Soledad brothers. He was a writer. He was in prison in Soledad. He was a political prisoner. He was one of the Panthers. And he wrote The Soledad Brother, and he wrote the book that changed my life, which was called Blood in My Eye. If you ever get an opportunity to read that book, it changed me utterly. And it made me, what did I say to the guy as a comment? I said, he revolutionized me. I don't say radicalized because I don't like that word, but he revolutionized my mind. So if you ever get an opportunity, read Blood in My Eye by George Jackson and read The Soledad Brothers. Tonya says, what I mean, it is not a reality for black folks. Thus, white historians have decided so. Well, yeah. Yes. See, you have to understand, post-racial is a definition of an era, a period of time in history. And you have to understand also that this is bleached history. Okay? So that's why it's called post-racial. That's the bleached version of history. This is why I say the civil rights movement was really just the economic apportionment movement. There were a lot of different things going on. You had people who were fighting because people were dying in the streets. Cops were killing them. Cops were beating them up. Everything that's happening today was happening then. Okay? Hey, Billy Clark says Diane says one of the earliest uses of the term post-racial. Aha! Okay. You got it. Thank you, Diane. Diane says one of the earliest uses of the term post-racial to describe the U.S. was on October the 5th, 1971. What did I tell you? It was that period of time, that era, where when you understand that the Civil Rights Act as amended to include housing discrimination, okay? See, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was designed to end discrimination, to end segregation. It was not designed to end the system of racism. So, but because they conflated racism with the idea of separation from white people, and that's the whole reason why we into Rights Act of 1964 supposedly ended the discrimination in employment and I think it was just employment, actually. There may have been other as low. It says, okay, let's see. Okay, it's back. Sorry about that, if anything happened. But anyway, um, so the Civil Rights Act of 1964, as amended to include housing discrimination in 68, was supposedly the end of racism. So by 1971, you had the I Me movement was kicking in full gear, and the world was supposed to be a lovely place. And it was supposed to be post-racial, but one. Thank you for that, Diane. Yes, it was to convince. See, we already knew it wasn't. It was to convince white people. This was the whole idea behind colorblind. You guys might have thought, white people might have thought it meant, oh, okay, I don't see black. I don't see color. You know, and I know. That mess was so internalized that you couldn't help but see it. But what you lost, what disappeared, was the concept of your whiteness as a state of being white. And it was replaced with terms such as normal. So if you were normal people, that was white people. If you were neutral, I'm neutral, you were white. If you were natural, how many bottles of something, lotion or whatever, people bought that said nude and natural, and it won your color. Okay? So that's what that was. Yeah, they were trying to convince us that the U.S. was free from racial preference, discrimination, and prejudice. Yep. But they lied to you. Because black people knew that wasn't the case. Because nothing ever really ended. Nothing ended. In fact, there were a lot of things that got worse. A lot of the behavior that we experience today, we experienced then. And we're experiencing it again, and a lot of people are surprised and shocked as though it never happened before, and oh my goodness, what is going on? But this happened before. This is not new to black people. It's always been this way. You know, I mean, it just has. Palmer God sent. Hi. Says, well, that's my point, Diane. Yep, it came into use then. That's not my reality. America is racial. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, we know that. And more, and we absolutely know that, and we couldn't know it any more than now. Because it's out in the open. Again. We reached the end of the, how can I put this? I don't want to say we reached the end of the colorblind era during Obama, because people were still lulled into this false sense of security. White people. Okay? Not black people. Okay? I won't say that. Not all black people. All right? Obama becoming president did not, I mean, he was not the Messiah. Okay? And thinking people knew that he was not the Messiah, and he wasn't being put in there to do much of anything but maintain the status quo, because he would not have been there, and he would have gotten killed if he stepped out of the status quo. There were enough warnings. Remember the guy when he was giving the speech and the guy was doing, do you remember that? The guy was doing he was, my mind, this mind is going a mile a minute, but he was doing hand signs for the death. Oh, shut up, Siri. I didn't even hit you. Anyway, he was doing hand signs, and come to find out, he didn't belong there. That was a teaching moment. That was to say, look, this is how close we can get to you if we need to. That was a message, okay? Let's not forget the time the people got on the elevator, got into the venue where they were, and were right next to them, and they didn't belong there. That was a signal. Step out one time, and this is how close we could get to you. We're not even going to count all the times that we didn't know. All right? So he wasn't going to do that much. But in 2016, when Trump became president, that signaled the end of the colorblind post-racial era. For all intents and purposes, it is dead. And years from now, anybody much younger than me, if you in your 20s, you'll know. I'll be long gone. But when they start writing the history of this time, they're going to give it a completely different name. But it will certainly not be the post-racial colorblind era, because that ship has sailed. Okay. Hi, Casey. Oh yeah, I don't know, Diane. That might be a little too heavy for you right now. And I'm not being facetious. I think I'm gonna find a couple of other books for you to read first. Cause that would be a little too much, I think, right now. And I'm not being facetious with you at all. I'm you know, I don't know. I don't want to say that. I don't want to say that. I really don't. Never mind. If you want to read it, you go ahead and read it. But if you when you have questions about it, you message me. Okay, you talk to me about it, because there's going to be some heavy stuff in there. It has a lot to do with mistreatment. He was a political prisoner. He was arrested for robbery and thrown in prison. And he and these three other people formed a Marxist. They started reading books on but he was a Black Panther anyway. So, but they were like of a Marxist kind of strain and everything. I don't agree totally with that ideology, but his writing was phenomenal. Yeah, did you read that, Tanya? Blood in My Eye. Oh, okay. It was good. Yep, Fred Hampton and Mark Clark were attacked and murdered in Chicago by state attorney. Yeah, yeah. I believe his brother, George Jackson's brother, went to the courthouse to spring him, and I think that's what happened. I think that's what happened. I think that's what happened. Hi, Brian Douglas. I think it was Mandela's funeral at Mandela. What was at Mandela's funeral, Khalil? What happened at Mandela's funeral? I don't know. You got that right. The only good thing about Dump is no more colorblind. Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you guys. The conversation was good. Oh, okay. Oh, yes, definitely. And you know what? I'm going to put together a book list. I'm going to put together a reading list of the doctor's in. You need to read this stuff because it's good. It's good. There's this one book that everybody has to read. There's one book called Sundown Towns, and there's another one called At the Dark End of the Street. Danielle McGuire is the author of At the Dark End of the Street. I always recommend that. Diane, if you want to read something before you read George Jackson, you need to read At the Dark End of the Street. It gave me such a new perspective about Rosa Parks. It just floored me how involved she was. as an individual in the movement, her movement that became part of the civil rights movement, coalesced around it. She was, she did so much more than just sit on a damn bus because she was tired. That wasn't even the reason why she sat on the bus. Okay? I grew up thinking what is everybody making such a big thing about the fact that she got on a bus? Because she was tired and she wouldn't get up. Well, here's the thing. Black women were the people that were riding those buses. And black women were victimized and brutalized on those buses regularly. They would get pulled off the buses. They would get thrown to the ground while the bus was moving, smacked around, beat up. That was during the time when, and it mentions it in the book, that black women did not own their own bodies. And part of her fight, and part of the reason for the civil rights movement, how all of these different movements coalesced around and ended up being, culminated with Martin Luther King, were a whole lot of little efforts. And at the dark end of the street points that out. She was trying to fight for the rights of black women to own their own bodies because they didn't. White men could come in your house and snatch your child. Could come in your house and say, I got a job for such and such, and make your wife go with him. And you didn't know whether she'd come home. And this was common. These were common practices. Yep. The fake sign language. Yes, Khalil. Yeah. Oh, okay. And meant that, was that where it was? Oh, I died. I laughed, but then I realized what was going on. I realized the significance, and the fact that he was at Mandela's funeral, that even applies a little more significance to it. It's like, yeah, you sitting up here celebrating the life of this man, right? But we wanted to get you. We could get you right where you stand. Before you know it, we could. And couldn't nobody do nothing. They were letting him know, you better not deviate from the status quo. Sorry if you do the Affordable Care Act, that ain't just for y'all. You better not talk nothing else. Repper what? Let me stop. Anyway, yeah. So, okay, listen. I've been on here for a minute. Hi, Eileen. How you doing? Our boy Brian is getting ready to become a doctor. He defends real soon. I think, what was it, on the 14th? Very soon. He's defending. Good luck, Brian. We'll be saying Dr. Weston, one of my cohorts. Gosh. Anyway, listen. It is, I know I have been on here for an enormous amount of time now. It seems like every time I get on here, I'm on here a little longer because I'm actually feeling like I'm having conversations in the living room with people. But the reason why I got on here was to talk about, this concept of lack of unity. Just stop it. Okay? Do me that favor. Open up your mind and think. Just think seriously, critically. I know I beat that to death, the critical thinking thing. But just think about some stuff for a moment. Ask yourself, why do I think this way? Why am I constantly thinking that there is something that we had that we lost? Why am I thinking that that unity, this thing I can't even put my finger on, that is a concept that we've attached some value to that we don't really even know exists. What we do know that exists is a collective identity as Black people, as a state of being that we put together during a time when we were treated unfairly and mistreated and brutalized and hated because we were Black. Don't think that there was a coincidence anywhere that we would be called Black when that already had a definition that was negative. All right? Don't even think that that was coincidental. It was a ready-made identification. Ready-made. Because even the blackest Black was dark brown. They could have said brownies. It wasn't going to have the same. There's no negative connotation for brown. So understand. And that's why during this time, when we were coming to a realization and we were embracing this thing and saying, yeah, you can call it whatever you want to, but guess what? I like my color. I like my Black. We this and we that. Yeah. I don't care if you say, well, y'all got rhythm. Yeah, you damn right we got rhythm. That's a good thing. Y'all like chicken. Yeah, chicken's good. Y'all like women. Yep, we like that too. I mean, I don't, but some of us do. There was a whole lot of negativity they were throwing at us. Stereotypes, left and right. And we said, in spite of all of that, we are together. Why? Because we Black. And we proud of it. And that's unity. Call that unity. That was never lost. Okay? So think about it. Ask yourself some questions before you decide to say, well, we as a people need to. We as a people haven't yet. We as a people should. No. Look at yourself and say, I need to. I should. Maybe if I would. And I need to get on the stick. Okay? Oh, thank you, Diane. Yep. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, let me add that in there. The Bloods and the Crips have said they will come together since Nipsey was murdered. Yeah. Exactly. Coalesce. And why? One person. So no matter what they say to you, understand, one person can draw a whole lot of people to them, even if it's just one or two. And then those people can draw people to them. Do you understand? It takes you. It takes the individual. So don't let people say, there's too much individuality. They're being counterproductive. They're telling you don't consider yourself. They're telling you to wait for something that's you don't have to wait for. It's not necessary to wait for it because you can begin it. You can start it. You can draw people and movements to you. Okay? I hope I have drawn a few movements today. Please feel free to share with anybody that you think might be interested in what I have to say. I ain't your guru. I'm just a doctor of education, retired, And I want to educate. Okay? I want to educate you. I want you to be more knowledgeable so that you know how to navigate through this system, because it probably won't go away in my lifetime. Okay? Oh, yeah, I will. I will, Diane. I'll make up the book list and I will put it on my website. I absolutely will. It will be on my website. I'm going to get together, I'm going to put it together within the next few weeks. Okay, everybody, if there is nothing more, if nobody else hops on, I will say goodbye. This is Dr. Cindy out.